Welcome to Fantasia, home of the Melodious. My name's Azallea, and today, gonna be bringing you guys another update to my Melodious deck. So without any further ado, let's just jump right into this. So starting off, we are playing one copy of Aria, the Melodious Diva, and we only really need one copy of Aria in this deck because all of our Melodious monsters are going to be searchable, and there are other cards that we can use to tutor them out straight from the deck, and I'll get into that when we get there. But one copy of Aria is more than enough to do her role. Alright, so the next card that we're going to play is 3 copies of Soprano, the Melodious Songstress. Now, Soprano is amazing because she is the main Melodious monster that can help recover resources and go for most of our power plays, which include going for rank 4s, getting resources for link monsters, or going for fusion plays. Now, Soprano has the effect where she is special summoned. You can target one Melodious monster in the graveyard and add it back to your hand, and that's going to be the main one that we're going to abuse in this build. Okay, so the next card that we're running that Soprano helps recover from the graveyard is going to be Cannon, the Melodious Diva. And Cannon has the effect where if you control a Melodious monster, you can special summon her straight from your hand. And that allows you to easily swarm the field to go for link plays, XYZs, or for your fusions, alongside Soprano, that is. So Cannon is definitely great. Unfortunately, she is limited to once per turn on her effect, but once is really all you need to get your plays going. Obviously, if she didn't have the restriction, she'd be much better as a card, but you do need to play 3 because you want to see at least one Soprano or one Cannon in your opening hand, so you can search out the missing piece with your Ben 10, Cyber Angel Ben 10, and then you can set up your plays. Okay, so in case you do not open either one of the cards, you also have other ways to tutor them out from your deck, and that includes these 2 copies of Summoner Monk here. So Summoner Monk, you can just discard a spell card and summon another level 4 monster straight from your deck. So in this case, you can summon Aria if you want protection, or you can summon Soprano or Cannon if you want to help you go for your plays. And Summoner Monk also enables a lot of nice rank 4 plays, and of course, as always, you can use him and whatever he summons out as link material. So that's always very nice. Alright, so to continue off with some of the text that we're running, we're playing one copy of Blackwing Gofu, the Vague Shadow, and Gofu is just so good for setting up your initial link summons. You can easily, of course, it's one card Decode Talker. You can go use the 2 tokens for Proxy Dragon, and then Proxy Dragon and Gofu go into Decode Talker. You can also easily go into something like Borreload Dragon if you have another monster to normal summon alongside this, because you can use both of the tokens that Gofu generates, and you can summon 2 Link Spiders. Then using both Link Spiders, the Gofu, and whatever other monster you normal summoned, you can easily go into Borreload. So that's always very nice as an option. Okay, so next off, we're going to move into some of the hand traps. Starting off, we are playing one copy of Honest, and Honest allows us to easily run over our opponent's monsters that our Melodious monsters may not be big enough to do on their own. And Honest is searchable with our Cyber Angel Ben 10, so you only really need one of it. You can also recover from the graveyard with your Saphra, so that's why one is way more than enough. Okay, next off, we're also playing 3 copies of Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, one of my favorite hand traps currently in the game, and it is so good for disrupting your opponent's plays, hitting field spells, hitting their monsters when they activate on the field, just so you prevent them from going for link summons or whatever other extra deck plays that they're trying to set up. Ghost Ogre is just fantastic overall, and because it's a light monster, you can actually recover it from the graveyard with your Saphra as well. Next off, we're running one copy of Maxi to wrap up the hand traps, and of course, Maxi is a great card to deter your opponent from special summoning, and if they do go off anyway, you just get some free cards, which is always nice. Alright, so the next, we're going to go into the ritual cards that we play. We're playing 3 copies of Saphra, Queen of Dragons, and Saphra is going to be the main engine piece of the deck that it focuses on because she covers so many bases that Melodious just inherently lack within their own archetype. Saphra, when she is summoned, or if a light monster is sent from the deck or the hand to the graveyard, doesn't have to be yours, it could be your opponent's as well. You can activate one of 3 effects. You can either draw 2 cards and discard 1, which is very nice draw power for the deck. You can randomly discard 1 card from your opponent's hand, which is nice if you already, if you're fully set up and you just want your opponent to have less cards to work with on their next turn, that's a great option to go for. And the last effect is that you can add one light monster from your graveyard back to your hand. So you can add Honest, you can add Ghost Ogre, and you can even add some of your Melodious monsters or other ritual combo pieces back to your hand. So we'll get into that right now. So we're also running 3 copies of Cyber Angel Ben 10, and this works so well with our Sapphire's because it's a level 6 monster that we can easily search with Preparation of Rites, Ritual Sanctuary, and you can easily just, it's a 1-card tribute for your Sapphire's, and she has the effect where if this card's tributed, you can actually add 1 light fairy type monster from your deck to your hand. So this can help search out all of your Melodious monsters, and they can even search out things like Honest. So it is a very versatile card for this deck. Now, the last monster that I play in this deck is one of my favorite techs, to be honest. It's going to be 1 copy of Saravis, the Ancient and Ascended. And Saravis has the amazing effect where during either player's turn, when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a monster you control, you can discard this card to negate the activation. So if your opponent's trying to get rid of your Sapphire's using something like Castell or whatever, Saravis can actually negate it, and it protects Sapphire's from her biggest weakness, which is actually targeting effects, because Hymn of Light, her ritual spell that you use to summon her, it protects her from battle and by destruction by card effects. So her only weakness, or her only main weakness, is going to be targeting effects, and this helps you cover that weakness. So that's great. And also, that's also the reason why 1 Aria is more than enough, because you also have this Saravis to help protect your Shiberta or whatever else you have on the field, in case you don't have Aria set up alongside of her. So that's also one of the reasons why. Anyway, that does it for all of the monsters. Next off, we're going to go into the spell cards. Alright, so for these spell cards, starting off, we are playing 3 copies of Ritual Sanctuary, and I've alluded to this multiple times when we're going over the monsters, but Ritual Sanctuary is so good for searching out our ritual combo pieces, because you can discard 1 spell card and add 1 light ritual monster or 1 ritual spell card from your deck to your hand. So not only is it a searcher though, it also has an amazing monster reborn effect. So you can shuffle any number of spell cards from your graveyard back into the deck to target 1 light fairy type monster in your graveyard whose level equals the number of cards that you shuffled into the deck, and you can special summon it. So it's very easy for us in this deck to get 4 spell cards into the graveyard, and if you do, you can easily shuffle those 4 back into your deck. So not only are you going to be able to reuse a lot of powerful spells, but you're also able to summon your Soprano back from your graveyard, so she can add cannon back to your hand, and then you can special summon the cannon and go for whatever monsters you need to from there. So Ritual Sanctuary is a fantastic card, and I cannot stress enough how amazing it is. Okay, so because Ritual Sanctuary is so good, we of course have to play 3 copies of Terraforming to search it out. And Terraforming is also a great way to, again, fuel your graveyard with a bunch of spell cards for your Ritual Sanctuary to go off. So that's just here for consistency. The next card that we play, of course, is going to be Pre-Preparation of Rites. This helps us search out the Sapphire's and her ritual spell, the Hymn of Light. So this is essentially a +1. That's also the reason why we run 3 copies of Sapphire's, is because you always want to have a search target for this card. Now, a lot of people don't know this because people don't read, but Pre-Preparation of Rites can actually add the ritual monster from the graveyard back to your hand. So if you run out of copies in your deck, you can always add Sapphire's from your graveyard back to your hand. And we're never going to run out of ritual spells in the deck for the Pre-Preparation of Rites to search, because you can easily shuffle the Hymn of Lights from your graveyard back into your deck so that you can make this card live again. Now, if you have your Hymn of Light in the graveyard, another very economical way of setting up a ritual summon is actually using Preparation of Rites. Now, Preparation of Rites isn't limited to just Sapphire's. You can easily use this to search out Cyber Angel Ben 10 and Saravis, the Ancient and Ascended. So Preparation of Rites can add those monsters to your hand, and then you can add 1 ritual spell card from your graveyard to your hand. So if you have a Hymn of Light in the graveyard, you can easily add that back, go for another ritual summon from there. So amazing card, and I'm so glad that they put it back to 2. Now, for the ritual spells, we're playing 3 copies of Hymn of Light, and like I mentioned earlier, Hymn of Light protects your ritual monsters from destruction by battle or by card effect, just by banishing this card from the graveyard instead of destroying the monsters. So it is fantastic to use, especially with Ritual Sanctuary, because what you can do is easily search out Hymn of Lights and keep throwing them into the graveyard. If you've already set up your ritual summon and you just want more spells in the grave, because what you can do then is shuffle the extra Hymn of Lights that you don't necessarily need at the time back into the deck so that you can summon your Melodious monsters back from the graveyard. Okay, so moving on, we are also playing 2 copies of Scapegoat. Scapegoat is just so versatile. It can not only protect you from lethal damage on your opponent's side of the field, but Scapegoat can also help you set up a lot of Link summons. And because we don't tap into the extra deck a lot in this deck, I filled the extra deck with a bunch of Link monsters that Scapegoat can help you summon, and that can help you advance your game state that we otherwise wouldn't be able to do, because Melodious is a bit slow and ritual summons require a lot of resource investment to go through with. Alright, so moving on, we're gonna go and play 1 copy of Raigeki. Raigeki, again, board wipe, super powerful card. I don't think I need to explain this any further, but it's really good, especially in this deck, because you can recycle it from your graveyard back into the deck, so you have a chance to continuously draw it over the course of the duel. And last but not least, for our spell cards, I'm actually playing 3 copies of Contract with Exodia. And if you're new to the channel and you're just looking at this like, why are you playing this? I'll explain when I get to the trap cards. But this is the card that you're actually going to send to the graveyard to help you fuel your Ritual Sanctuary plays. So that does it for the spell cards. Next off, we're going to go into the trap cards. So for the trap cards, if you're still confused about the Contract with Exodia, we are playing 3 copies of Obliterate. And this is the only trap card that we're playing in the deck. It is so good. So what you can do with this card is you can target 1 monster on the field, send 1 Forbidden One monster or Exodia card from your hand or deck to the graveyard, and if you do, return that target to the hand. So this is basically a compulsory evacuation device, but as you can see, it is a continuous trap card. So you can use it over and over again. And if you have this on your side of the field and you have your Contract with Exodias in your deck or potentially in your hand, you don't really want them in your hand though, but what you can do is continuously send these Contract with Exodias to the graveyard, and then when you're running low on the Contract with Exodias to send, you can easily use your Ritual Sanctuary to shuffle these Contract with Exodias back into your deck to refuel your Obliterate so you can continuously bounce your opponent's monsters. It is very annoying for your opponent if they have no way to get rid of it, and it could potentially lock them out of just summoning monsters altogether, especially if they're a very normal summon reliant deck and they're a slower paced archetype. But yeah, that does it for the trap cards. Next off, we are going to go into the side deck. Alright, so for the side deck, starting off, we are playing 1 copy of Barrier Statue of the Heavens. Now, this card is a fantastic floodgate because of the fact that it's searchable by Cyber Angel Benten, and it is so good to run alongside Saphra and Honest. Because Barrier Statue only has 1,000 attack points, it's very common for your opponent to try to normal summon something and just attack over it, and then go into their main phase 2 before special summoning everything that they want. But what happens is, if you have Honest in your hand, you can easily protect your Barrier Statue of the Heavens, and Saphra can keep recycling it during the end phase of every turn. So that means that you have a very easy way of just locking your opponent out of the duel if they don't play any light monsters. So that's why I use this as a side deck tech, and it works really well. Okay, so speaking of okay, so the next card that we run is going to be some generic removal of our own. So we're playing 1 copy of Dark Hole. This is to accompany the Raigeki in the main deck. Just if we're going second, we want to be able to clear out our opponent's boards so we can create our own uncontested. The next card that we play is going to be 3 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. Cosmic Cyclone is fantastic removal, and it's kind of better than MST and Twin Twisters right now because Pendulum Magicians exist, and if you use Cosmic Cyclone, you can actually banish their Pendulum monsters if they're in their Pendulum scales. This prevents them from floating, and this prevents your opponent from special summoning them back, compared to if you just blew them up with MST or Twin Twisters and they went to the extra deck. So Cosmic Cyclone is definitely amazing, and of course Dark Dark Hole and Cosmic Cyclone are spell cards, so you can continuously recycle them by shuffling them from the graveyard back into your deck and then drawing them later on throughout the course of the duel. Okay, so the last spell card that I play in the side deck is going to be 3 copies of Magical Spring. Now, Magical Spring, if you don't know what this does, you can draw a number of cards equal to the number of face-up spell and trap cards your opponent controls. Then you discard a number of cards equal to the number of face-up spell and trap cards that you control. And until the end of your opponent's next turn, after this card resolves, spell and trap cards your opponent controls cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effect. Also, their activation effects cannot be negated. So this seems like something that might benefit your opponent a lot, but what happens is you side this in if you're going second. And if you're against things like Pendulum Magicians, where they have their continuous spell cards and trap cards, as well as their Pendulum Scales, and potentially decks that have field spells and stuff like that as well, you get to draw a ton of cards, potentially set up your graveyard with a couple of important things that you might, like spell cards and things that you might not need. And then it helps you not only set up your combos, but then you can also potentially draw into things like Cosmic Cyclone, and Magical Spring prevents your opponent's cards from being destroyed by battle or by card effects, but Cosmic Cyclone banishes. So you can still get rid of their spell and trap cards if you use the Cosmic Cyclone, which is why I recommend this over the Mystical Space Typhoon or the Twin Twisters in this build. But yeah, there's just a little bit of synergy there, and this is an amazing draw power card that can help you potentially draw into whatever you need, the things that you sided, like Dark Hole, Raigeki, to overcome your opponent's board. But anyway, moving on into some of the trap cards that we side, starting off with 3 copies of Dimensional Barrier. And Dimensional Barrier is like the catch-all side deck card that can help against ritual decks, against Synchro, XYZ, or Fusion decks. It's just so good as a floodgate. It can even hit Pendulum monsters as well. So if you're having a difficult time with your opponent just swarming the field, not necessarily with Pendulum Magicians, but with other things as well, Metaphors are still a very viable deck in casual settings. You can always use this to block them out of stuff as well. So Dimensional Barrier is fantastic as a floodgate. It's disgusting as a card. But yeah, it's a fantastic side deck option. Okay, so the next card that we play is going to be 3 copies of Solemn Strike, and to go alongside that we have 1 copy of our Solemn Warning. This is just some nice summon negation that we can side in. If you're not really fancying Obliterate in a certain matchup, you can definitely side out the Obliterate and the contract with Exodia to side in some of these traps or potentially some of these spells, depending on if you're going first or second. These spells are more useful if you're going second, and these traps are definitely more useful if you're going first. But yeah, that does it for the side deck. Next up, we're going to go into the extra deck. Alright, so for the extra deck, starting off, we are playing 2 copies of Link Spider. Now, Link Spider is fantastic to use with our Scapegoat tokens because some of our Link monsters that we need to summon require effect monsters, which Link Spider is, and they can't use things like tokens. So Link Spider is just fantastic for just helping set up those boss monsters. Now, you can always substitute one of the Link Spiders out for something like Link Karibo if you have it, but I don't. It's just an option if you do. Okay, so moving on to the other Link monsters we have, we're playing 1 copy of Proxy Dragon. Because we are playing Gofu, you can always use 2 of the tokens to make Proxy Dragon, then use a Proxy Dragon and Gofu to go into Decode Talker, so that's why Proxy Dragon's there. It's also a very generic left and right Link arrowed card, so you can easily set up for multiple extra deck monsters if you're trying to swarm the field. Next off, I also play 1 copy of Ib, the World Chalice Priestess. Now, Ib is also a left and right arrowed monster, but she requires 2 monsters with different types and attributes. So you can actually use a Scapegoat token, perhaps like a Melodious monster or something like that, to easily summon the Ib. This is just another option for left and right arrows, just in case you use the Proxy Dragon already to go for the Gofu and with the Gofu to go for the Decode Talker. So this is just another option that you can go for to help expand your board. Alright, so like I mentioned earlier, we are also playing 1 copy of Decode Talker. That's because we were playing the Gofu. Decode Talker is also a really nice beat stick that you can use, and Decode Talker is really good for protecting your Ritual Sanctuary from targeting effects and your Obliterate as well. You don't really want to lose your Obliterate because it is a fantastic resource for you, and it adds a lot of disruption to your opponent's board. So having protection for it is just fantastic. That's why Decode Talker is a great card in the extra deck. Now, I also play one copy of Gaia Saber, the Lightning Shadow, and Gaia Saber is just really good if you already have your extra monster zone filled and you want to summon a new extra deck monster. So if you have Scapegoat out, you can summon 4 tokens, and then using 2 of the tokens and your extra deck monster that's in the extra monster zone, you can summon your Gaia Saber. And then Gaia Saber has a down arrow, so you can use the remaining 2 tokens to potentially make something like your Proxy Dragon, so it expands out your board so you can summon 2 different extra deck monsters if you would like. So it's just a way to get rid of the monsters that are in your extra monster zone to help expand your plays. And of course, the last card that I'm running, which I don't have a copy of, is going to be one copy of Borolo Dragon. And Borolo Dragon is just a strong beat stick that you can use. It can't be targeted, and it is just so good because you can attack into your opponent's monsters and just steal it and either use it for yourself or, you know, get rid of it using a Link Summon or something like that. It's just a fantastic out to your opponent's boss monsters as well. So yeah, that does it for all of the Link monsters. Next off, we're going to go into the XYZs. So for the XYZ, starting off, we are playing one copy of Fairy Cheergirl. And Fairy Cheergirl is just a nice way to get some additional draw power into the deck. If you have 2 Melodious monsters on your side of the field, like Soprano and Cannon, you can always overlay into this if you don't think Shiberta is really necessary at the time to get some extra draws. And you might get lucky and draw into something like Pre-Preparation of Rites and stuff that can help set up for a ritual summon. So it's just a fantastic card to use. Okay, so the next card that we play is going to be one copy of number 41, Baguska, the Terribly Tired Tapir. And Baguska is a fantastic floodgate. If you're going first and you don't know what you're up against, but you didn't open too well, you can always sit on Baguska and be safe for a couple of turns until you get the resources that you need to pop off. The next card that we play is going to be one copy of Tornado Dragon, and Tornado Dragon is just a toolbox option for us to go into because we're not main decking any spell and trap removal. You can always go into Tornado Dragon to pop your opponent's Pendulum Scales, field spells, anything they set during the end phase, and stuff like that. It is just a fantastic toolbox option. And last but not least, for our XYZs, we're running one copy of number 39, Utopia, and of course, alongside Utopia, we're running one copy of number S39, Utopia the Lightning. And I am so glad that I kept these cards because they're so powerful. Utopia Lightning especially because you can just run over anything that your opponent has and you can not worry about any of your opponent's potential battle traps or monster effects that activate during the battle phase because Utopia Lightning prevents them from activating. And being able to go up to 5,000 attack means you can attack over a ton of monsters that you normally wouldn't be able to, and it's just such a powerful tool to use to end games or to attack over your opponent's boss monsters. But yeah, that does it for all the XYZs. Next off, we're going to go into the fusions. So starting off for the fusions, we're running 2 copies of Shiberta, the Melodious Maestra. And Shiberta has the effect where during either player's turn, you can target up to 3 cards in either player's graveyard and banish them. She also gains 200 attack for each, so she can go up to a beefy 3,000 attack, which is very nice for a beat stick that's relatively easy to summon, especially with Soprano and Cannon being so easy to access in the deck. And last but not least, to wrap up the entire extra deck, we are playing one copy of Bloom Diva, the Melodious Choir. Now, you're not going to be able to summon this too often, but you can summon this if you have like a dead Shiberta in your extra monster zone, and you somehow manage to get another Soprano onto your side of the field. You can easily fuse for Bloom Diva, because she has an amazing effect, and she has built-in protection from battle and by card effects. So that's why she is also a fantastic addition to the extra deck, and we had the space so I could fit it in. Alright, so that does it for the extra deck, and that does it for this deck profile. So thank you all so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed it or found it helpful, please leave a like, subscribe for more Melodious content, and leave a comment down below letting me know what I can do to improve. And until next time, take care.